friends, welcome to today's video. You guys know what this is from the title already. This is how I have been doing my contour lately. I have nothing on right now, but I'll let you know before I begin why I decided to do this video. I have been on a, there's like one bobby pin sticking right out of my bun. I have been on a weight loss journey over the last year. A couple weeks ago, I posted a video where I was sort of talking a little bit about some of my frustrations with being like stalled out for a little while in that weight loss. And a number of you mentioned very sweetly how you can really see the difference in my face. And I do think that is true. My face has slimmed down a fair bit, but I also think it's because I've gotten a little bit better at doing contour. I think I may end up mentioning in the title or like the clip thumbnail of this video sort of my age, because to me, being somebody who is 40, when I was learning how to do my makeup in like the 80s and 90s, contour wasn't a thing. It just wasn't a thing that people did. So it wasn't anything I grew up learning how to do. You kind of go through a process of understanding your face, and I didn't do that. So I was a little afraid of contour for a while. I didn't really understand how to use it. When I did use it, it just looked sort of patchy and wrong and like my face looked dirty. So it's taken me a while to get to a point where I used it, because for the longest time I just thought, okay, my face is just a round face and it doesn't really take to contour because I don't really have cheekbones that necessarily are that noticeable. But as I played around with it more and more, I think it's very personal to, first of all, how you like your makeup to look, but also starting to understand maybe a couple tips and techniques, but then also your own face shape. So I thought by me sharing what I do with you, it might give you a few ideas on how to play around with your own contour if that is what you want to do, to be able to have a way that it works for you or that you like using it. That was a lot to talk about. I am going to use for this my Park Avenue Princess palette. This is a Tarte palette of highlights and bronzers and contours and all that sort of thing. I really like Tarte powder products, so I don't have on right now any blush or any contour or bronzer, anything like that, because I thought we would sit down and do this together. What I do have on my face is my foundation, which currently is the IT Cosmetics CC cream. I've been testing that out and I'm continuing to test it today. I put that down and then I set it with some Tarte powder, a very fine powder, just so that I would have a base layer of powder so that this wouldn't sort of stick and drag. If you don't set your foundation with powder and it feels somewhat tacky, it just means that the powder doesn't really get a good chance to blend really well because it's going to stick to certain parts of the foundation. So in this palette, I will usually go in with a combination of princess cut and either carrot or angle, just depending on what I'm feeling like. This is kind of the most neutral cool tone shade, and then these ones warm it up a little bit. One of them has a little bit of like a satin sheen to it and the other doesn't. It really just depends what I'm feeling like for that day. But the other thing I want to mention here is the brush that I use. This is Aesthetica. It doesn't really matter. The point is that it is a larger fluffy brush, but that it has a domed or pointed end to it. This means that I can sort of have control over where it goes, because if I want to, I can just use sort of the very tip part that doesn't touch a lot of my face, or I can really fluff it out. So for me, I take sort of one side of the brush. I'm not going straight in, I'm going in with an edge, and I kind of tap it between the shades that I want to use. You can see it's picked up some there, and then I really tap it off, because you can always go back in and add more, but you can't really take away. And then what I want to think about is, where is it that I first put the brush down, because that's going to be the place that picks up the most powder. So you always, in my mind, I'm not an expert, this is just what I've learned how to do for myself. I want to first put the brush down in a place where I want the contour or the bronzer to be the deepest, and then blend out from there. So I really start and just sort of tap up close to my hairline, because I kind of want that to be the deepest, and then I start sort of blending in circular motions from there, but sort of keep it moving up towards where I want it to be deepest, which is along my hairline there. So you can see from one side of my face that has none to the other side that this has a little bit more depth and warmth and dimension to it. And basically I want this part of my face to stay the brightest. It's almost like highlighting it just by not putting anything there. So I keep the bronzer slash contour sort of around the frame of my face. And I have this great widow's peak, so I kind of work around that. Again, just tapping to pick up, tapping off, and then start right up by the hairline in sort of patting motions to deposit the powder, and then swirling to start to blend it around where I want it to go. And I sort of blend it down towards my temples. If you do find that you've put on too much or it's gotten too dark, you can take your powder brush with a little bit of your translucent or setting powder, whatever you usually use, and sort of brush that over top, and it will soften out what you have. But you can see this has now given my forehead a little bit more dimension and depth and shadow to it that still looks pretty natural. At least I hope it does. Things always come out looking different when I actually go to edit this after I film. So I feel like the forehead is sort of the best place to start if you're new to bronzing, because you can't really mess it up too much if you basically keep the concentration of the depth close to your hairline and then fluff it out from there. It's pretty easy in that way, and it does give you a really nice sun-kissed kind of look. So where I find it gets harder is doing cheek contour. So let me start by saying a couple of things that I think people kind of do a little wrong that I have also done, and go from there. So if you're looking at where your cheekbones are, you can sort of feel like my cheekbones are here. And I can feel that just by pressing in. So really, I mean, my cheekbones are here, the shadow falls underneath from there. Let me just kind of use this. So if this is my cheekbone, then the shadow doesn't start underneath, it sort of starts just under where the cheekbone hits. So I kind of want the shadow to be just under here. But also part of the thing of contouring, at least for me, is that I want to create the shape of having maybe a little bit more cheekbones and also higher cheekbones. So I kind of want to cheat up a little bit on where my cheekbone naturally is. The other thing that I find people do is they will suck in, but that's not where your cheekbone is. That is where like your jawline is when you suck in. So if I contour down here, it's going to draw everything down on my face, and that's where you end up looking like you have more of a sort of dirty line on your face rather than a shadow. I also find when people do that, they tend to put their brush down right here and then blend, which means you're not creating a cheekbone, you're kind of just getting a spot in the middle of your face. So I'm going to once again take my brush, again, just taking one side of it and tapping in, and really tapping off. And then again, what makes a big difference is where I first put the brush down. So I tend to do that close to my temple and then brush out from there and almost in a curve motion and upwards. I'm not blending here because then I don't have a lot of control. I just kind of want to blend down and up to really make it look like I have this lifted shape right here. And then if I want, I can sort of use the tip of the brush to sweep up a little. So I'm not going right down to my mouth, because that would make my face, or at least with my face shape, look a little bit more dragged down. I'm actually starting from the temple and more sweeping up. So that gives me more of a look of like a lifted cheekbone rather than if I went, which kind of makes everything look drawn down. So again, tapping in, tapping off, starting, up here, depositing some color, and then pulling it down and up, but almost where like I want to put the shadow here. And I hope you can see how that's now added a little bit more dimension to the sides of my face. And the final thing I will sometimes do, not always, is go in with the most cool tone, because those other shades add a little bit of warmth to it. But if I then go in with just the most cool tone one and bring it just along my jawline here. And it's just sort of right along the edge, so it sort of cheats up onto my jawline a little bit to sort of create a little bit more separation of my jawline and my neck, because your girl's got sometimes some double chin going on. And then I sort of bring that down my neck a little bit so that I bring my face apart from my neck. And the final thing I will sometimes do, not always, is I sort of squish my brush down a little bit, or you could do this with like a smaller brush like this one, which is a pretty large eye brush, but it is a fluffy blending brush. This is a large eye blending brush. Again, into the most cool tone, really tap it off. And then I'm gonna contour just under my bottom lip. Very lightly, to give almost a poutier look. So it almost looks a little bit more like your lip protrudes a little more and casts a little bit more of a shadow underneath. And finally, this has nothing to do with contouring, but if I'm having an easy makeup day, I will just take any one of these shades, doesn't really matter, on this big fluffy brush and use this as my only eyeshadow, just by fluffing it into the crease and then circling down onto my lid. So I've now added all kinds of dimension and shaping to my face. And the last thing I'm going to do is add a little bit of blush. And I actually just take the same fluffy brush, I just kind of tap it off a little bit there, and use whatever blush I feel like using. So I'm going to go in with this Basic Beauty blush. This is in the shade It's October 3rd. It's a very pink, kind of almost candy floss pink kind of color. It's not, it picks up a little funny. I find it can be a little bit patchy, but I'm still testing this, so we'll use it today. And for this, I'm just trying to keep it in this area and then fluffed around a little bit from there. Just to add a little bit of pink and flushness to my face. And there we go. That is how I have been contouring, bronzing. Those terms kind of flow together sometimes, and giving more shape and dimension to my face, which also makes my face look like it has, yeah, maybe lost a little bit of weight or just has some more angles and depth to it. If you're using a foundation and concealer that sort of blanks everything out, you then want to add that dimensionality back to your face again. So this is what it looks like. So I hope that was helpful for you, especially if you are somebody like me who has been very much a contour newbie for the longest time. It really helps to have some really nice blendable products so that you can sort of really do the blending and things look really smooth and nice. But again, if you do make mistakes, it's just makeup, and you can go in with some translucent powder and sort of even out anything that you've done that may look a little too deep. So thank you so much for joining me for this today. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. No pressure, whatever you want. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.